Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 583 to 584 for the 29th to the 30th of September. And let's start off with some weird news. The Ukrainian drone managed to fly all the way to Sochi. So this happens actually today, this morning in local time, and the UAV is a Mugen 3 kamikaze UAV. It was shot down, and but it did come while a passenger plane was trying to land, and it does cause some chaos, and the airspace was then closed down by the Russian air authority around that region. And you can see that the drone managed to fly pretty far, which begs the question: did it really fly that far? Or was it launched from somewhere closer? That is actually a big question, to allow a drone to fly this far undetected and unintercepted. The Ukrainians also continue to launch some cross-border raids, this time around to Lomakovka as well as Kaminsky Kuto. So this is reported by pro-Russian source Ryba, where they mentioned about 50 soldiers managed to cross over. I'm not sure is so 50 soldiers cross over to Lomakovka, another 10 soldiers cross over to Kaminsky Koto, and among these forces, reportedly there were infantry fighting vehicles and armored vehicles. So it is some very interesting thing, but this was happening on the 29th of September, and it did not happen anymore. So it was just a one-off raid from the Ukrainians over the border, and just to let the Russians know that no, don't leave that gap open, or the Ukrainians is going to come in. And another news is coming from Remelin 21, Remelin, a pro-Russian source. So Remelin is known for his contact with Wagner fighters, and according to him, there are several new units of former Wagner fighters coming back to the front, and the total number of returned Wagner fighters are now into the thousands, and many of them are still in the rear camps, is still in the rear, but there are some units that are already in the front, operating offensive operations. So this is very interesting. And it was not really mentioned by most other sources, but Remelin is very credible in terms of information regarding Wagner forces. So it's something that I would really put into consideration. But to be honest, Wagner forces well trained. They are not super soldiers. They are still human beings. So you can just think of them as very well trained soldiers. Don't think of them as some Captain America kind of thing, or Captain Russia. Over at the southern front, we have some clashes over at the Kazachi island. So previously we have mentioned Ukrainian forces have landed over and managed to create a very decent foothold on the northern side of the island, with the Russians holding the southern side. And this time around, the Russians actually launched an attack on the Ukrainians, which caused them to redraw. And as they redraw, they actually did send ships to try to evacuate, but those ships were actually under artillery strike. Information of this entire incident actually comes from the pro-Russian source. Ryba reported about this event that happened over here. So the recon forces, the one that launched the attack on the Russian side, is actually allegedly a recon force, and they managed to actually capture 2 of these Ukrainian soldiers. So on the Ukrainian side, these are the reconnaissance battalion of the 131st, and they tried to they went into an all-round defense in the northern part of the island. So for those that didn't go through military before, all-round defense, basically you're just forming one circle and basically pointing your guns at all directions, because you do not know where the enemy is going to come. So basically that's about it. But no, don't take this too much too seriously, because this is just the way how they just described it, and this probably not the way how it happened. For example, you can say that the British forces, when they got pushed towards the shoreline of where's the place, Dunkirk. So as they withdraw into Dunkirk, you can also say that the British forces form an all-round defense after they withdraw to the northern end of the Dunkirk. Yeah, it doesn't mean much, to be honest. So the evacuation group on the boat transferred reinforcement, and on the way back to Mykolaiv, they got sunk by artillery. This is according to their information. So they apparently, it looks like they sent even more forces into this area here, but just take it with a pinch of salt. Mykolaiv is actually here, so it's a huge distance for the Ukrainians to actually sail over here to drop off reinforcement. Yeah, but that's just what it is. So moving on from the Kherson front, we go into the Zaporizhzhia front. Over at the Zaporizhzhia front, we have a missile strike reported over here at Ukrainka. So this missile strike was actually the video was first posted by the Russian Defense Ministry. So they were attacking a train with military equipment. According to the footage that I watched, the train was actually loading up armored vehicles or military vehicles. But it doesn't. The missile strike actually seems to miss. It didn't hit the train. It actually missed the target. So yeah, maybe the shrapnels will cause some damage. Maybe. So yeah. So yeah. Just take it as it is. And this is the time to remind you to press the like button, and if you are new to this channel, do press the subscribe button, so that you can continue to see videos coming out from this channel. There is reinforcement reported over at the Kayamsky sector. This is Kayamsky. Kayamsky sector is actually this part. So there is reinforcement reported over at Hryhorivka, Stepnohirsk, as well as Kayamsky. So the gathering or accumulation of forces in this region may have some corroboration, or there may be some links to recent rumors about Ukrainians wanting to capture the this is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is here. This is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in the city of Enerhoda. So according to some rumors coming from the Ukrainian side, they say that they want to capture, this is the new target now, they want to capture the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And the gathering of forces over the Kayamsky sector do give some feeling that that might be the case, but of course it's easier said than done. Information also coming from pro-Russian source. Rybar reported all these things. You may be wondering why everything is coming from the pro-Russian sources, because the pro-Russian sources, especially for Rybar, they do talk more about this sort of things. The Ukrainian side will never tell you much of these details because it's always operational secrets. So bear in mind that even pro-Ukrainian YouTubers or reports, or even neutral sources, or even ISW, the Institute of Study of War, all of them refer Rybar for such information. Whether they will actually credit the source to Rybar or any other pro-Russian sources, it's really up to them. But for example, ISW do quote Rybar as a source, but many of the pro-Ukrainian YouTubers, maybe they will not. So you may think that they got the information from from thin air, but that's not the case. So I'm just being transparent, letting you know that the information actually comes from the pro-Russian sources. Believe or not believe, really up to you. Over at the Orikhiv sector, this is the Orikhiv sector. At the Orikhiv sector, this is where the Ukrainians launched a major offensive over in the region of Robotine, and they are trying to capture Verbove and Novo-Prokopivka. The fighting continues in this region. We're fighting nearing Novo-Prokopivka, and there was serious clash between the Russians and the Ukrainians over at Verbove, with the Russians also attacking west of Verbove. The Russians are also counter-attacking into Robotine. So we cover some of the information first. The south of Robotine, we have the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported on the 29th of September that the Russians tried to counterattack in the region of Robotine and Verbove. Verbove is over here. So we can see the same information being reported here on the 29th. On the 30th, the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned that their units are conducting fire attacks, fire missions on the Ukrainians, and this attack is also reported by the pro-Ukrainian source Deep State UA, talking about the Russians attacking. The Ukrainians are not really seen to be attacking from Robotine down to Novo-Prokopivka. The attack is most likely coming from the northeastern part of Novo-Prokopivka. Information of this attack towards Novo-Prokopivka is only mentioned by the pro-Ukrainian source Myroshnikov. So Myroshnikov mentioned the fighting on the 29th, but we did not see any information of fighting on the 30th of September. I'm not sure if it's a weekend thing or is it because there was really no more attacks from the Ukrainian side. So there is definitely a sense of the operations on the Ukrainian side slowly ramping downwards. It's getting less and less kinetic. So this is the sense that I get as I am reporting this on a daily basis. There's geolocations of Ukrainian forces by Crimea Caprice. I'm not sure what source. I'm not sure what is the lineage of Crimea Caprice. It might be pro-Russian. It may be Ukrainian. The language they use is always very neutral. So, I like to think of them as a neutral source where they do a lot of geolocation, and they geolocated the Ukrainian forces on the northern part of Kopani. And this also kind of corroborated some of this information about Ukrainians attacking in the region of Kopani. There was some fighting reported in this region here. Yeah, not sure exactly where. Yeah, then there was so there's another geolocation of Ukrainian forces just south of Robotine. This is by geolocated by military summary, with the Ukrainian forces at this road region here, just off this major entrenchment around this region. There was this major flamethrower strike on these Ukrainian forces, and this actually corroborates, or not corroborates, but actually updated the front line to show that the Ukrainians have retaken control over here, because previously there was a geolocation of Russian armored vehicle all the way here as the Russians were trying to counterattack. But with this geolocation of this strike means that the Russians actually have not really reached the outskirts of Robotine. So this is the significance of this geolocation. And we over at the Verbove side, there was information of Russian forces fighting in the western part of Verbove. This is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And so this is 30th of September, and I'm not sure west referring to this part or west referring to this part, or is it this part? The west can mean a lot of things. So there must be some kind of a Russian attack in this kind of direction, because in this part, in this area here of Verbove, sometimes they actually call this northwestern. So western part might be suggesting this major trench line that is running through here. That was not exactly marked on my mapping, so because it's a much newer entrenchment that was developed by the Russians. And so there is continued fighting near Verbove with the Russians on the offensive, as per reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, as well as Russian Defense Ministry mentioned about it. The state also mentioned about it, which I mentioned earlier. Ukrainians were also trying to attack at Verbove, but it seems like the initiative is mostly on the Russian side. There was some reinforcement reported at Velyka. According to the pro-Russian source Ryba, they reported that the 82nd Airborne Brigade was reported to have arrived at Velyka. So the forces here continue to accumulate. I'm not sure if it's meant for an offensive or they actually saw movements on the Russian side. Since we are looking at some Russian offensive taking the initiative over in this area here, I wonder if there is another Russian force that was gathering, around Novo-Porovska region, and the Ukrainians are actually gathering their forces just to keep the Russians away. That might be a possibility, but I'm just speculating at this point. Over at the Huyaipole sector, the Huyaipole sector is here. There is some geolocations northeast of Zakhirny, according to military summary of Ukrainian forces. Another one is on the western part of Dorozyanka. And these geolocations only just confirm that our front line is pretty much correct. that the Ukrainians are still in this position, but they are getting bombarded because all this geolocation is video of them getting bombarded. But of course, that doesn't mean much because the Ukrainians might be bombarding the Russians as well, just that we didn't see the footage. So don't take those footages that you're watching or going viral online too much, because most 99% of this war or more is not taken in video forms. So whatever you see is just a very small slice of what is happening on the front line. So don't take them too seriously. There is a continuation of the fighting at Chervony. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry again reported that the Russians are on the offensive in the area of Chervony, and we are not exactly sure what is happening in this area here because there is no one else talking about this. It was not acknowledged by the pro-Russian side, so we have to know exactly what's happening around here. We move on into Velyka Novosilka sector, which is here. This Velyka Novosilka sector, fighting continues to be raging around this area of Prione region. There is Russians attacking somehow south of Novo-Donetske, and I wonder if this is actually describing the northern part of Prione. And let me adjust the thickness of the arrow. Yeah, this did not better. So there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces by Crimean cavalry on the northern part of Prione. So this actually helps to confirm that at least the Ukrainians are actually still in that position. Fighting is still reported at Prione from the 29th to the 30th. This is reported by Russian Defense Ministry and Marinka on the 29th. On the 30th, it was continued to be reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. And over on the Rivnopil region, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry continued to report there is fighting near Rivnopil. And so this is 30th of September. The last attack was around Rivnopil was on the 23rd of August. This is a Ukrainian attack in this region here. So let's watch this area here. There's a lot of skirmishes. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. This interesting thing is Marinka, the pro-Ukrainian source, reported that the Russians are attacking east of Prione. This Prione east is in this direction. The Russians attacking here doesn't make sense because that's not where the front line is. So I put a question mark to it because the Ukrainians are not known to have traveled this far out. So yeah, that's probably not accurate. Maybe it's the western part. Maybe it was a typo. So there is fighting reported on the western part of Staromayoske. This is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 29th of September, with the Russians attacking the western part of Staromayoske. And this attack is only one day. We didn't see this reported on the next day. So just the Russians attacking in this direction, one off. So it's just a skirmish, or maybe just some artillery action with the tanks moving up, doing some pop shots and then just run away, that kind of thing. And the Ukrainians will attack it, report it as a Russian offensive. At Uruzhaine, we also have Russians attacking at Uruzhaine, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 29th, also mentioning that it is the Russians attacking. So this is a continuation of the report from the previous day, 28th. There was an attack already. This is 29th attack again. 30th, we didn't see any reports of the attack. So the Russians are definitely doing a lot of probing actions. They are probing and they are poking everywhere to see if there's any weak spot. There is also this information from Marinka into the Donetsk front at Novo-Donetske. They say that there are some battles at Novo-Donetsk, but we're not sure what does this supposed to mean. And continuing on the east of it, there is geolocation of Russian forces on the northwestern outskirts of Novo-Mayoske. And this is significant because previously geolocation was of Ukrainian forces that managed to capture this area here. The Ukrainian forces managed to capture this area here during the Ukrainian offensive of Novo-Mayoske. And then we have this information of Ukrainians actually withdrawing from this region here. And now that we have the Russians geolocated this area, this actually corroborates the entire information that the Russian forces have fully recaptured Novo-Donetske or secure the whole settlement. So this is actually important in that sense. Moving on, there is fighting reported at the northern part of Mykolaiv in the Voleda region. This is Voleda, and in the Voleda region, the north of Mykolaiv, there was a Russian Defense Ministry reported some Ukrainian assault groups, assault detachment that was attacked. Probably they were trying to probe towards the Russian positions, and then they got spotted and they were attacked by the Russian forces. There was some geolocation of Ukrainian forces entrenched in this position in the northeastern part of Mykolaiv. This geolocation is by Crimea Caprice, and so Ukrainians here, some probing. So very interesting situation. Pretty much still a very stagnant front line, most of it. Over at the Marinka region, there is Russians attacking in the area of Novo-Mikhailivka. This is in the northeast. Novo-Mikhailivka is here. The Russians are attacking in this direction, and this is reported on the 29th of September. And we actually have a video of the Russian attack over in this region here. It was dated on the 29th of September as well, and it was geolocated by military summary. Ukrainians have positions within this tree plantation region, and the Russian tank actually enters around here, and they fired into this plantation region. So, and after that they will just withdraw. So this attack, like I said about the previous front lines, is the Russians' attack could be just pot shots. They are just doing pot shots, and it's not the kind of assault to capture ground. So do be mindful when you see information of attacks. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Russians want to capture ground. Over in the Marinka region, we have the Russians continuing their month-long attack. In the Marinka region, and 3rd to 30th, and in fact previously there was, since the start of this new way of dating, where we try to capture all the dates, the fighting here continues actually for months and months and months for most of this war actually. So the Russians are still attacking, and the information coming from Myron Shinikov mentioned about the Russians continue to hold, get some success, but still didn't manage to capture the full settlement. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported on this fighting on a daily basis, and the Russian Defense Ministry actually reported that the Ukrainians actually tried a counterattack on the 30th of September, but pretty much that's about it. We didn't really see much additional information about the fighting in Marinka. We move on from Marinka into the Avdiivka front. This is the Avdiivka front. At the Avdiivka front, we have fighting reported at Nivelske, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and there was Ukrainians attacking at Vodian. So the Vodian one is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. In the same report, they also mentioned about Khimik. Khimik is actually this settlement here, this part of Avdiivka, as well as fighting reported elsewhere. So the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported there is some fighting south of Avdiivka, with the Russians trying to capture lost position, according to what they say. So which is very different kind of a situation. If you can see this, it looks like they are just doing their own thing, not reacting to one another. And in the northern part, we have fighting reported on the eastern part of Stepove. So that's interesting, because which means that the Russians are pushing from Krasnohorivka towards Stepove, and yeah, we shall continue to see if this becomes something sustained. We haven't seen an attack in the direction of Stepove since 26th of August, which is more than a month. So, as I mentioned in previous reports, that maybe you have missed, the Russians are doing a lot more offensive operations suddenly in the past few days and within the past week. And this comes at the end of seemingly the end of the Ukrainian offensive. So the Russians are trying to retake offensive, or the initiative, but it's unclear what is the objective, because all these raidings and probings comes across all the front lines, but none of them looks like a major offensive operation. We also have this over at the New York front. We almost never hear about the New York front, but there is fighting reported at Novosilivsk. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 30th of September mentioned about fighting in the Novosilivsk region, which means the Russians are actually doing some things around this region here, and it's really unclear what's the objective right here, because things are really all over the place on the Russian side. You can see the Russians attacking this direction, in all, they're everywhere, and it's not so clear what is the objective right now. While the Ukrainians are also conducting their offensive over in the southern part of the Bakhmut front, we have continued Ukrainian actions over at Avdiivka and eastern part of Klishchiivka and around Klishchiivka region. First, we go into Mayos. There is geolocation of Ukrainian forces near Mayos over here by Crimean Kraporis. This is Mayos. So that's it. For those that are new to this channel, Mayos is an extremely important town for the Russian forces, because it holds the line of this highway, and this highway leads all the way up north to Bakhmut. And this, if you go all the way south, it actually goes to Avdiivka, a major city in Donetsk. So this is why this highway is highly important, and it goes through Mayos, and this is why the Russians made a lot of effort to capture this settlement, which was pretty much underreported, because people don't really see the importance, but it is strategically very, very important for the Russians. There is a continued fighting reported at Avdiivka from the 29th to the 30th. Ryba reported it, with the Ukrainians trying to attack, break through the defensive line along the railway line, whereas Marinka simply talk about further progress towards Avdiivka. So according to Marinka, he don't do mapping, but it does feel like as if the salient is already like this. The Ukrainians are pushing. But if you look at the Russian side, the way how they look at it is like the fighting is still along the railway line region. So there is this parallel universe between the two. So this is something important to note. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces at this on the western part of Avdiivka getting destroyed. It's an armored vehicle under fire by the Russian forces. Shows that the Russians actually is still not that far away. They are still pretty near. Which is continue to cause threat for Ukrainian forces even this far away from the front line. The distance between the front line to this attack was around 1 to 2 kilometers. So yeah, so it shows that the Russians are still pretty much around. In the Klishchiivka region, there is fighting reported on the east of Klishchiivka. Again, this is by the pro-Ukrainian source Marinka mentioned about this. In the northern outskirts, we do not know what is exactly happening, because information is more vague. The Russian Defense Ministry reported Ukrainians attacking on the 30th of September, whereas the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that the Russians are counterattacking from the 29th to the 30th. Ryba also mentioned about fighting over at Klishchiivka, but they did not mention who is on the offensive. So both sides are pointing to each other as the offensive side. So let's see how this goes. In the northern flank of the Bakhmut front, that is getting more and more interesting in this front line. Other than geolocation of Ukrainian forces just off Bakhmut, so this is Bakhmut. There is a geolocation of Ukrainian forces in this position, so that help us to change the front line a little bit. The interesting thing is the Russians attacking in Orikovo-Vasilivka towards Avdiivka and towards Bodanivka. This offensive operation is extremely unusual. And the information coming from Marinka, the pro-Ukrainian source, Ryba reported about the fighting at Avdiivka. And then we have Remlin, the pro-Russian source, and Deep State UA mentioned about Orikovo-Vasilivka. So the information comes from all over the place. And when you put it together, you see a bigger picture of the Russian making a bigger push in this region here of Dubovo-Vasilivka. And there is actually rumors don't take this very seriously. A pro-Russian channel called the Belarusian Silvik, or some Belarusian Telegram channel, which is actually pro-Russian, says that the Orikhovo-Vasilivka is now captured by the Russian forces, but this is just rumors. Deep State UA actually reacted to such information, claiming that these are not true. That direct information from the commander of the 23rd Battalion of the 56th Motorized Infantry Brigade actually informed them that the Ukrainians are still within this settlement here. So the Russians are still pretty much on the offensive within the village, and this offensive actually comes pretty much out of nowhere, in a way, because the first attack was first reported on the 29th of September, and we didn't have any signs that the Russians were on the offensive in this area here prior to this time. The Ukrainians were still fighting near Orikhovo-Vasilivka, according to Remelin, although we are not exactly sure near means where. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Is unclear. But definitely the fighting in this region here has suddenly flared up by quite a bit. So moving on into the Siversk front. At the Siversk front, we have fighting reported at Vasily. Remelin reported that the Russian forces entered Vasily, located north of Soledar, which is actually correct. Soledar is over here. So the Russians actually attack into Vasily. We have to take this with a pinch of salt because Remelin is still a secondary source right now. So we have to continue to look out for more corroborating information from other sources. We shall continue to see whether this will turn out to be correct. Over in the Luhansk region of the Siversk front, Bilohorivka saw attack. Russians attacking Bilohorivka on the 29th of September. It was not mentioned on the 30th. And actually, if you look at the dates, 18, 20, 25, 26, 29 to 30, 1, 4, 1 to 4, 13, 23rd. The Russians in this region here, the attacks against Bilohorivka is always very random. It's very sporadic. It's not sustained. So this likely will be yet another one of those one-off attacks, just to keep the Ukrainians on their toes, and that's about it. Moving into Kreminna. At the Kreminna front, we have Ukrainians doing some offensive operation from at Yampolivka, Torske, and Dibrova. So the fighting is mainly in this sector over here. And the information is coming from Ryba, the pro-Russian source, and the Russian Defense Ministry. Ryba reported on the 29th. On the 30th, the Russian Defense Ministry corroborated this information. Same thing for Torske, and over at Yampolivka, the fighting was reported by the Russian Defense Ministry on the 30th of September. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces within Torske itself by military summary shows that the Ukrainians still have position within Torske. Pretty much probably they actually hold very good position. But these two geolocation is actually aircraft bombings. FAB 500 bombs. So 500 kg bombs on the Ukrainian positions within Torske, northern part of Torske. So very painful. And it does also show that the Ukrainians have very, very limited surface-to-air missiles capabilities or anti-aircraft capabilities within this front line. So this is actually very concerning for the Ukrainian side. We move on into the Svetove front. We actually have no information of any fighting along this front line. We move on to the Kupiansk front. This is Kupiansk. At the Kupiansk front, we have fighting reported at Stepovo Novosilivka. So Stepovo Novosilivka is over here, and information coming from Russian Defense Ministry mentioned about their units conducting active operations against Ukrainian forces at Zaporizhzhia, Novosiolovka, and the Russian forces attacking probably through Ivanivka, which also begs the question if the Russians actually captured Ivanivka over the past few days. And this attack is very illuminating. We shall continue to monitor if this is the case, because the Russians had previously claimed in October last year, this is actually last year, that they have control over Ivanivka. But we shall see how this goes. There is still fighting report at Sinkivka. According to Maroshnikov, I have my doubts because no one really talks about it. But the Maroshnikov continued to mention about this from the 26th to the 29th, with the Russians continue to put pressure on Sinkivka, and Sinkivka is over here. So not sure. It really depends on how you want to look at it, and that's it from the Kupiansk front. And that's it for the entire SITREP, the situation report for the Ukraine war or the special military operation in Ukraine for the day of 583 to 584 for the 29th to the 30th of September. So this is a full technical report. If you dig this kind of things, you should press the subscribe button, especially join the YouTube membership, because most of this SITREP, because it's not very ideal for retention, which is what one of the YouTube algorithm looks at. So it's put behind paywall. But from time to time, every week at least, there will be one of the SITREP to be put to public so that people have a taste, or remember that actually the war actually is a lot bigger than what you are seeing from maybe some other YouTube channels. I'm not sure because I don't watch, so I can't tell. But the thing is, the war is a lot bigger. There's always a lot of things happening. Every video, takes this long to actually record. So I'm not sure how people can record 10 to 12 minutes and cover everything. So, but anyway, this is just how it is. Anyway, press the like button, subscribe, and put your comments in the comments below. Tell me what you think. I do read as much as I can, and yeah, that's about it. And see you in the next update.